Hi, and welcome to the Deer IQ podcast where smart hunting begins. I'm Adam Lewis, and this is a high IQ topics video and podcast episode. We haven't done one of these in a while, but this is where we depart from our normal series and get into a topic. And today's topic that's very relevant is 6 easy things you can be doing right now, early moves for big bucks in the fall. And these are things that I'm going to be focusing on right now. It's spring and early summertime. And the reality is this: now is when success happens through exact preparation. The fall is just execution. So what are things you should be doing right now that will lead to that success? I'm going to go through 6 of these. And the 6th one is actually a kit that you can put together that will really benefit you. I'm going to go through the details of that and what's in my kit here at the end. Okay, and if you're new to this podcast, we're about high IQ type things. So we're looking at smart moves you can and should be making. And the reality is that more mature bucks, they don't tolerate mistakes. And a lot of times these little details, these little mistakes that we make, these little things we overlook are what kills us and kills our chances. If you're a person that struggles a little bit, to get on good deer or to actually take them, it's a grind for you, and sometimes you succeed, but a lot of times you don't. It's these details that matter. So we're going to go through 6 of those today. Again, now is the time that you prepare for that fall success. It's what we do right now that matters more than in season. If you wait till right before season, August, September, it's too late. Definitely not in season. It is too late for a lot of these things. So let's take a look at these things here today. So number 1 on my list is filling the holes. Now I'm talking about filling holes in systems. To me, the best hunters out there that are very consistent that I've observed, and what has worked the best for me is getting systems in place. These guys have good systems. Now, these are a lot of different things that we could go through, but I'm just going to talk generally right now. If there's any holes in your systems, you got to go through these things and you got to start plugging these holes and making your systems work like a fine oiled machine and work for you. You want to be a highly effective hunter, and it boils down to your systems and how well they are working. Think about, industry. They all have systems. Think about assembly line and how that is perfected. You want your systems working in the same way, and they start going to work for you. And if they aren't, any little glitch in the system, a weak spot in the system is going to show, and is going to be mistakes that you're going to make, and it's going to hold you back and cause trouble for you. So right now, speaking of systems, is a great time to buy gear to help shore up some of these weaknesses in these different areas. Right now, I just bought some different gear related to my scent control regimen. And there's a lot of sales that go on right now too. If you wait to season, the sales aren't really sales, right? So springtime is a good time to get a lot of these sales. I got some scent lock stuff. Also, looking for things like new SD cards, going through all my trail cameras, and it's a great time to run tests on trail cameras. Which ones are working? Which ones aren't? I recently wrote an article about how some people think that cellular cameras, are detectable by big bucks. Reality is they aren't any more than a regular one, but what is setting them off that, might cause a deer, especially a mature buck that don't tolerate much of anything, to avoid them. So right now is when you should be going through your cameras and seeing which ones make noise, have a noisy shutter, which ones are operating well, which ones are not. Start looking for sales to replace those. Also, do you have any SD card issues? I've had those in the past where certain ones work, certain ones don't, and I've had failed cameras. That is not good to be happening in the middle of the season. So it's a great time to go through all that stuff and to buy new stuff, to find some sales. Make sure all that stuff is in working order now while there's still a ton of time to make sure things are fixed and ready to go. You can look at your camera straps. Some of mine get all frayed and messed up, making sure those are all in good working order. Again, so you're not finding this stuff out right before season or during season. So now's a good time to fill the holes in your systems, identify those, go through all your systems, whatever those might be, whether it be maybe you're a mobile hunter, going through all that stuff, making sure everything is precisely working and well. If it isn't, discovering that, testing things, figuring out exactly what you need to replace or fix or try something new with to get that dialed in before season. So look for those sales and fill holes in your systems. The second thing is to remove all doubt. The worst thing that you can have happen is to go out in season, during season, and not be fully confident in yourself or your gear. That's a terrible position to be in. You don't want to be in the moment of truth and pulling back on a deer, pulling back on a big buck that you've been waiting for, and not be confident in all your equipment performing as it should. That's where I was at the end of last year, which is a terrible place to be. So I had some struggles with aeroflight, and it was right at the end of season. I had some trips coming up, and I was in a bind. I was not confident in the flight of my arrows with my broadheads, and that's a terrible position to be in. So I had to do all this testing right before one of my big trips, and it's a terrible feeling to walk out there and not be totally confident in your setup. And so now's the time that I am really digging into that and fixing those problems, because I don't want that to happen months down the line when it's harder to deal with those and you're under pressure and you're under time constraints. So you want rock solid confidence when you enter the field. So now I got a new string, and what I found was my old string had stretched enough that it was 5 pounds less than when it started. The new string with the same bow settings without adjusting anything was 7 pounds heavier of draw weight. Something was up there, and I had it tuned. The tune was off, so I had to go through all that stuff and get it reset up. And now I'm going through it again to make sure I have good flying arrows. My broadheads are flying similar to my field points. But the point is, I'm taking care of that now and well ahead of time. Well ahead of time, so I'm not rushing in season. Remove all doubt now with your systems like this, so you're set up and ready to go when you go to the woods. The third thing you should do is preemptively fix all mistakes. Most mistakes are fixable if you can see them ahead of time, especially these ones that were there last year that could crop up and cause a problem. One of these ones for me was in my mobile hunting setup, and I hunt a lot of public land. I use hang-ons. I also used a saddle a lot last year. And part of my problem was with my setup when I was climbing up and trying to be super quiet, and I'm in tight on deer and in bedding areas, I'd get occasional clang from my sticks hitting my saddle with how it was hung on my saddle, or my platform would hit the sticks. I get a little clang now and again. And so I had to kind of work with that last season, but every now and then I get that. And those are mistakes that can cost you, right? They can cost you big time. You don't want any of those to happen. You don't want to have it, just not happen 90% of the time, because that 10% of the time could cost you. You need to be in a position where you're sure that it cannot happen, right? You have to completely eliminate any chance of failure as far as you possibly can. Murphy's Law is our biggest enemy. So you're doing everything you can or should do to eliminate any chance of mistake. And so right now, again, is the time to do that. So I will be going through that system and figuring out why I was getting clanging. I can't totally soundproof every little piece of metal on that system, unfortunately. But I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to make sure I set it up in such a way that how I was rigged up as I climb, nothing will swing and hit anything else and make that noise. If I can't do that, I've got to start eliminating something. I've got to change something. So again, I am confident that when I need to, and I need to climb up really quiet, when I'm in tight in a bedding zone, in a bedding area, I'm not making any noise. Also, I'm ordering more of consumables. There's some things in my systems that are consumable, and you have to look at that too. One of those is activated carbon that I use. I'm going to start adding zeolite to my scent control regimen too, because these get used up over time and their effectiveness decreases, right? So you need to start looking at those things again now when you can order those things, you can get them in place beforehand. You can experiment with new things. Don't be afraid to experiment with new things for your systems, but you don't want to be experimenting in the middle of season. Okay, that's the worst time to be just kind of toying around with something when you need to have it, locked in, dialed in, ready to go. So I'm going to replace those things I need to that I know I use, so that my systems are dialed in. I'm ready to go for season well ahead of time. And if something is messed up, I have plenty of time to go ahead and fix that and figure that out. Okay, so if you like this episode so far, if you like the podcast and have listened for a while, I want to ask a couple of things of you. First, make sure you follow, subscribe, and also share this with a buddy that might benefit. That really helps the channel grow. And also, as we grow, it helps me get better guests, more guests that you like, and really expand what we're doing to better deliver for people listening. So thanks for that ahead of time. But go ahead, like, subscribe, and share this with someone that might benefit. And if you really want to up your deer IQ, I invite you to the Deer IQ Advanced Whitetail Workshop this summer. That is coming quickly and closing fast. That's a 2-day experience where we dive deep for serious hunters that really want to up their game from being inconsistent or struggling to being a very consistent and effective deer hunter. We give the tools and mindsets to do that, so when you walk out the door, you have a plan. This is different than most workshops where it's just giving information. We do that, but you will actually go through and apply it. So you walk out with some actionable steps that you can take specific to you, specific to your blind spots, and things you need to work on, so it can really take years off your learning curve. And I truly believe that for anybody that attends. Also, if you sign up with a buddy, you get a discount. So check that out now below before that ends and before seats are filled, the Deer IQ Whitetail Workshop. Okay, the fourth thing that I'm going to be working on right now and into this summer is upping my inventory. By inventory, I mean my spots, my locations that I can hunt. This would be private, this would be public. It is pounding on doors, it is checking out new public land spots, and it is really having a big inventory of that so I do not burn any spots out. And I always feel like I'm going to a spot and I know that could really produce for me. If you don't have enough spots to hunt, or if you ever feel forced to hunt a spot that you don't really want to, or doesn't feel hot, or it isn't, based on intel and data, and that is very important, then you don't have enough spots. You really need to start looking at these, and these can change from year to year as other people move in, move out, all those things. These spots are super important in having a very diverse portfolio of them. So I'll be looking for more. It's better, in the spring when it's cooler, but you can even do this in the summer when it's hot out, and start categorizing these for time of year, when they hunt, best wins to hunt them, and going through this whole list of things. This is critical and super important, and it's a great time to do it. So you have some fresh spots, and think about last year. Last year, did you have any times where you didn't know where to go? You weren't sure. You felt forced into hunting certain spots over and over again because you didn't have a bunch to just look up in your portfolio that you could just go to on a certain wind, a certain time of year, morning or evening. Now's the time to start shoring those up. And I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be visiting some old spots and checking those back out to kind of try to see what was going on last year, to reestablish those or check them off the list. Sometimes you just got to get rid of some, and finding new ones to continue to replenish that and ones I'll be looking for and looking at this fall. So it's a great time to up your inventory of locations. Number 5 is plan for success. Like I said, now is when you're planning and preparing. When the success actually happens, fall is just execution. Here's some things that kind of fall underneath that, though. Um, First is have a purpose and plan around it. And what I mean by that is what you're doing this summer, have a purpose to it. Also, one of those things for me is shooting, like I said, and getting my bow back on track and getting real confident with that. So I'm doing a couple archery shoots this summer. One's the tack, one is a Reinhardt shoot. That's fun to do with friends. You can also reach out and connect with other people in your area of passion. I think that's pretty important to do to keep it going. If you're just a solo guy or a guy that honestly like me, that a lot of times I'm just so busy, I'm not connecting with a lot of people unless it's business. So doing that in a fun way, but that it has a purpose and a plan around it that advances what you're doing is super important. And so for me, dialing in my bow, all my shot prep stuff, all my gear through that is also a fun thing to do with the shooting events. So that's what I'm going to do with a purpose and a plan, have some fun, and continue to dial in my setups for success. Another thing you can do and should do is learn something new. This could be a book, a course, a workshop, like the Deer IQ workshop, that will challenge you and push you to new levels and get you thinking outside of just where you're at right now. One of the worst things out there, I will say, on social media is just getting locked into certain groups or certain people you listen to. These can be echo chambers, right? And a lot of this information, just to be honest, is not correct out there. And so opening yourself up, exposing yourself to new information, whether it be a book, a course, a workshop, something like that, is super important. It forces you to start thinking with your brain. It forces you to analyze things, and it forces you to grow, which is what you want. Another thing is to apply for tags. If you have future hunts you want to go on 10 years from now, you got to do that now. And I'll admit, I made a major mistake this year. I missed a deadline for an application. That puts me a year behind where I should have been in one state. I won't say the state. Now, there's other states I can hunt. I still have time for those other ones, but don't mess that up. Make sure you're planning for your future outdoor moments and memories right now. And if you've always dreamed of doing something like hunting in Alaska or this place or that place, a lot of those places require points. Some do, some don't. But look at your age, look at where you want to be 10 years from now. You got to start planning now. So start looking at that stuff, apply for tags, start planning those future moments, those future hunts now, and get those points in. Okay, and number 6 I said was make a kit. Now this is a tactical gear kit, and this is my mock scrape kit. This is something, and I'll go through the details, but hunting a lot of public land, even private, it doesn't really matter. Having kits set up is super important. I think you can just grab and go. Everything's in one backpack. It's set. It's ready to go. You've thought through it. You've tested through it. You just have to grab it and go. It's ready and prepared. Mock scrapes, I think, are really big, have been for me on public land to get pictures and to get chances at bucks that normally are kind of hard to. It's one of the few things you can do to attract them to an area, especially if you can't bait, and to get them accustomed to doing what you want them to do. You are literally training deer ahead of time and planning around when you want to have an encounter with them months ahead of time. And mock scrapes are a way to do that. Here's what I put in my kit. So I'll have a backpack just for this. You can get cheap backpacks out there. It doesn't have to be a gray backpack. A cheap backpack, wash it, ozone it, get it all scent free, get a backpack. In that backpack, you should have rubber gloves. I am a firm believer, especially when you're making something, you're trying to fake a deer out. You don't want to leave any human scent there. A mock scrape, you're trying to fake the deer out. So have rubber gloves. Never touch anything around that area with you or your clothes, if at all possible, especially when you're making licking branches. Rubber gloves that are disposable that you throw out are key. So put those in there. Have your favorite scents. There's several I've used that have worked well. I'm not going to promote any single one, but get one that works for you. That is just staying in that backpack again, so you can grab and go. Another thing to have is some hand pruners for trimming things away, for getting, again, setting proper licking branches in place. Pruners are a big tool for that and helping just prepare an area. If you can't trim in public, be aware of that. But on private or public, sometimes it is okay. So just know when and where you can do that. Also, have string in there, have zip ties in there. A lot of times I will have to add a licking branch. And there's, a lot of ways to do this. Some people hang vertical, vines or ropes. Those things on public land stick out like a sore thumb. So I want to be minimalistic if I'm on public. On private, it's a little different. You can toy around with those. But what I've found, even though sometimes those work well, those vertical, just dangling branches, the real thing is always better. Something that's vertical and that is broken at the end, that has a resistance to it, I think is key. So you have the scent you're going to add, but also that resistance there is a big thing. It is very realistic, where just a dangling rope is not realistic as far as in a deer's world in a licking branch. So trying to make very realistic things, I've found oak works really well. It holds up well. So even if you have to cut and rig up a licking branch at a certain spot to get deer to use that to where you can actually hunt them, that's a big deal. And so having that system in place is, and that backpack, that kit, is real important. Zip ties help with that. Electrical tape, I've used that before to tape up certain things. And I just got a new spade tool to throw in the backpack. It has a shovel-like end. It has prongs on the end, so I can dig and make the scrape easily. I can chop roots if I need to get those out of the way. So I have a nice soil bed for setting my scents and making these very good mock scrapes. So having that kit together is real helpful for that aspect, to start taking to the woods here real soon to start making those. Okay, so those are 6 things I'm going to be doing now, and I'm sure I've left some things off the list that I also will be doing. If you thought of any of those things, put those in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next Deer IQ podcast and Deer IQ video.